At 25,000 feet, the Lancaster was dying. Flames tore through the engine. Smoke flooded the cockpit, and the pilot, barely 23 years old, whispered to himself, "Hold together, just hold together." No one knew it yet, but the next 10 seconds would decide if 7 men lived or vanished into the night. Just minutes earlier, the sky had been calm. The crew of Lancaster Red Falcon settled into formation. 7 men, each carrying hope, fear, and the quiet understanding that tonight could be their last. Flight Lieutenant Arthur Briggs, the pilot, felt the tension sitting behind every breath he took. A steady hand, but a storm behind his eyes. Beside him was his co-pilot, Thomas Hale, younger, nervous, tapping the throttle with a trembling thumb. Navigator James Farrell spread his maps across his lap, calculating headings with quiet urgency. The gunners, Miller in the tail, Chapman in the mid-turret, watched the darkness for shapes that could kill them in seconds, and the engineer, William Keats, listened to the engines like a doctor listening to a patient hoping he wouldn't hear anything fatal. No one said it aloud, but every man on that aircraft feared the same thing. This night felt wrong, but no one could see why, not yet. The first warning came without sound, a vibration, small, almost gentle. Arthur lifted his head. "Did you feel that?" Keats answered quietly. "Engine 2. Something's off. Oil pressures, drifting." Arthur frowned. How far? And then the pressure needle plunged, farther than anyone expected. Before Arthur could speak, a blast lit the night. Shrapnel ripped through the Lancaster's wing. The aircraft lurched. Someone shouted, "We're hit!" The fire started instantly. Thomas yelled through coughing, "Engine 2 is on fire. We're losing thrust." James, the navigator, looked at the altimeter, sinking like a stone. "We're dropping fast. We have minutes, maybe less." Arthur steadied his voice. "Feather the prop." "It won't feather. That fire's spreading." Someone screamed from the rear turret. "Flames on the port side. It's moving up the fuselage." The oxygen system sputtered. Smoke burned their eyes. Every breath hurt. But then something even worse. Keats forced the words out. "We just lost hydraulic pressure." A deadly silence fell. Hydraulics meant control. Hydraulics meant landing. Hydraulics meant life. And now, they had none. Arthur realized something no one else had processed yet. Without hydraulics, this bomber could not land. It could only fall. At that same moment, Thomas whispered, "What do we do?" Arthur swallowed hard. There was no engine power, no hydraulics, no radio that anyone could understand through the smoke. They were burning, falling, blind, and alone. Arthur spoke softly. "We glide." James snapped his head around. "You can't glide a Lancaster from 25,000 feet. Not this damaged. Not burning like this." "I know," Arthur said, "but we're doing it." He didn't explain. He didn't need to. Either he held this bomber in the air long enough to reach friendly territory, or they would die over enemy fields, and their families would never know where they fell. Every man understood the stakes, but none dared speak them aloud. The engines died one by one. Silence swallowed the bomber. Thomas whispered, "God, we're a brick." Arthur answered, "Not yet." He eased the control column forward. The Lancaster dipped. A controlled fall. Barely controlled, James muttered through clenched teeth. "If we lose too much speed, she stalls. If we gain too much speed, the wings tear off." Arthur nodded. "I'll balance it." "How?" "With every ounce of luck we have left. But there was something he didn't say, because saying it would break what little hope remained. The glide path had to be perfect. Perfect for nearly 100 miles in a burning bomber, without instruments he could trust. Miller, the rear gunner, coughed until his voice cracked. The fire. It's reached the tail. I can feel the heat through the turret. Chapman shouted from mid-turret, "We can't stay like this. We have to bail." Silence. Then Arthur's voice, firm. "No one jumps. Not yet. If we bail over enemy lines, we're done." Thomas whispered, "If the fire reaches the main spar, we're done anyway." Arthur tightened his grip. "We make it home first." But he didn't know if he was telling the truth. 23,000 feet. 22. Smoke clogged their throats, eyes watered, hands trembled. James announced, "At this rate, we might reach the coast. But after that, I don't know." Arthur asked, "What's our glide ratio?" "Terrible." "That bad?" "Worse." But Arthur kept going, one breath at a time, one adjustment at a time, one impossible hope at a time. Then, a new problem. Thomas squinted at the remaining instruments. "Arthur, you need to see this." "What now?" "The fire's eaten through the aileron cables. You don't have full control anymore." Arthur whispered, "All right. All right. You can't fly without ailerons. I'll use rudder and elevator only." "That's insane." "It's all we've got." He was right, and insanity was now their only path home. But what no one expected was that the worst danger was still ahead. James stared at his maps. "We have another problem." "James, please, not another one. If this glide path continues, we won't reach an airfield." Thomas froze. "Then where do we land?" James whispered. "We don't." Miller shouted from the back, "The turret's heating. Fast. If the ammunition cooks off." Arthur cut him off. "Don't think about that." But they were all thinking about it. The bomber groaned. The wings bowed. Metal strained like it wanted to tear itself apart. James looked at Arthur. "You know, most crews never even try this." Arthur nodded. "I know. They bail out. They don't even attempt to bring her in." "I know. So why are we?" Arthur answered with quiet honesty that stunned them. "Because you're my crew, and I'm not losing you." No one spoke after that. There was nothing more to say. Hours felt like minutes. Minutes felt like seconds. And then James whispered, "I see it. The coastline." Thomas exhaled a breath he'd held too long. "We made it?" "Almost." That word, almost, hung over them like a blade. Arthur asked, "What's the nearest friendly airfield?" "Northolt." "But Arthur, we're too low." "How low?" "Too low to turn. Too low to circle. Too low to try anything except one thing. And that is, you go straight in, one shot, no second chance." Arthur nodded. He knew. The Lancaster descended over dark fields, fire still burning, control surfaces failing, altimeter sinking. Thomas whispered, "Arthur, we don't have the height. We're not lined up." "I'll make do." "You can't make do with physics," Arthur answered softly. "Watch me." James shouted. 500 feet. Chapman closed his eyes. Miller whispered a prayer. Arthur braced. 300 feet. Thomas whispered, "Arthur, whatever happens, Not now. 200. The burning Lancaster dropped like a wounded animal. Too fast, too low. James shouted, "Pull up." Arthur pulled. The bomber refused. He pulled harder. The bomber dipped. 100 feet, 50, 40. The ground rushed toward them. Arthur growled through his teeth. Come on, come on, just a little more. A jolt, a scream of metal, a skid that felt like eternity, and then silence. Real, absolute silence. Thomas gasped. We're alive. Miller coughed. Someone tell me that actually happened. James muttered, That wasn't a landing, that was a miracle. Arthur sat back, hands trembling for the first time all night. He whispered, We made it. Aftermath. In the weeks that followed, engineers studied the wreckage. They calculated glide ratios, mapped damage patterns, ran survivability models. Their conclusion stunned everyone. The glide should not have been possible. The aircraft should have broken apart. The crew should never have reached the coast. And landing was statistically impossible. But Arthur Briggs did it anyway. When a reporter later asked how he managed it, Arthur smiled softly and said, Because they needed me to. And so, from 25,000 feet, through fire, silence, fear, and the edge of physics itself, one pilot proved something timeless. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is choosing to fly anyway.